Man, the Lions just love bringing cornerbacks in for a workout. What does it mean?
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, everybody? Matt Dery with you on a Thursday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today is Thursday, April 11th and Friday, April 12th. Folks, 2 weeks from tonight, 2 weeks, we got night number one in the NFL draft. We get the first round of the NFL draft. Lions drafting 29th, fourth last pick of the first round. Will they even make a pick? Will it be like midnight and people are camping out downtown? Right around Greektown there, or Greek Block, as my buddy Eric Pate used to say, right around that stage, waiting for the Lions to make that pick. Will Brad Holmes trade down and the Lions not make a pick and everybody goes home without a player? It's going to be crazy. But we got a lot to get into on this Thursday edition of Locked On Lions. Thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcast. That includes on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Please subscribe and check us out each and every day for free on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Thank you to our everydayers who are out there today. I was out at an event at Troy Oral Surgery for a ribbon cutting for the Troy Chamber of Commerce, where I am an ambassador, and I ran into one of our everydayers today, the legendary Alex Urban. Thank you, Alex, from Near Perfect Media, PR man to the stars, an account manager. So Alex says he's been checking us out all the time, and appreciate him checking us out right here on Locked On Lions and being one of our everydayers. Locked On Lions today, brought to you by our friends also at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. FanDuel.com. Go there now, /LockedOn to get started. Follow us on Twitter, Dery Speaks, at Locked On Lions. On Facebook, the Matt Dery Facebook fan page. On Threads, at The Real Matt Dery. And also, like I said before, check us out on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. So it is exciting. We are 2 weeks away from night number one of the draft, the first round. I'm going to be downtown. I'm just not sure what I'm doing yet. So we'll let you know as well. We got our Locked On Lions mock draft, our Locked On Podcast Network mock draft coming out shortly as well in the next week or so. But the big news, not really big news, but the news of the day, and it kind of came from Dave Burkett this morning from the Free Press. And Dave does a fantastic job. We love Dave. Beat writers, got to shout them out. I guess Dave was a part of a panel today down at the Detroit Economic Club. Panel of draft experts. It was Brad Galley, Dave, Nick Baumgardner, and Will Birchfield. So a lot of diversity in that group. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm making a joke. I'll leave it there. Anyway, Dave was down at the DEC today, but he reported this morning that the Lions were getting another visit, 2 visits today in their top 30 visits from cornerbacks again. One is Nehemiah Pritchett, who we told you was coming in from Auburn, and the other is Kalen Carson, the top corner from Wake Forest. So if you look at it, and again, I've been mentioning this, but I want to know what this means. I'm dying to know what this means. The Lions have 30 visits to use. 30 players can come in to Allen Park, check out the facility, work out the team, whatever it is. All right. They've reportedly, and again, there are some that maybe have not been reported. Most of the players like post on Instagram that they've been here and all that. So they've not all been quote unquote reported. But there have been 10 players, according to reports, that have been to Detroit to work out, or at least to meet with the Lions as part of their visits. Michael Hall, defensive tackle, Ohio State. Christian Boyd, defensive tackle, Northern Iowa. And safety, Sione Vaki from Utah. Why do I stop there? Because the next 7 players are all cornerbacks. Today, Kalen Carson. Missouri's Ennis Rakestraw was in town. Drew Phillips from Kentucky. Terrion Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry from Bama. Quantez Stiggers from the CFL. So 7 count them, 7 of the 10 players are cornerbacks. What does this mean? Now, again, there are a lot of good corners in this draft. There's a lot of corners that can play in this draft. If you really look at the depth in this draft and you say, what are the deepest positions in the 2024 NFL draft in terms of just a lot of good players at a position? One is wide receiver and the other is corner. There's a ton of good corners in this draft. There's 5 or 6 that you could go see, maybe even 7 that could go in the first round. I don't think it'll be that many. There's a lot of good ones. Arnold and Mitchell from Toledo and Rakestraw and Wiggins, Kool-Aid, DeJean. That's just off the top of my head. So I find it interesting that Brad Holmes, in the first 10 players that they've brought into town, 7 of the 10 have been cornerbacks. What does that mean? Like, is it a smokescreen? Could Brad be saying, watch this, I'm going to bring in every cornerback in the world and have all the other teams think I'm drafting corner at 29 or at 61 or whenever. So these teams are always thinking, oh, Brad Holmes is going to grab a corner there. Let's say there was no draft. The Lions could go into the season right now with enough cornerbacks. They could play. If they didn't draft a single cornerback, they would have enough on the roster right now to feel good about it, right? You got Carlton Davis. You got Amik Robertson. You've got Emmanuel Mosley. You've got Kindle Vildor. You've got Brian Branch. You've got Khalil Dorsey. You've got Stephen Gilmore. There's 7 guys right there. The Lions could sign Stephon Gilmore if they wanted to. That would make it 8. You do need corners. You do need depth. All right. Ife Melifonwu played corner in college, started as a corner with the Lions. If anything, the Lions could use another safety or 2. The Lions could use a wide receiver. The Lions need depth along the offensive line. But why 7 of the first 10 all being cornerbacks? And I look at the list real fast again. Kool-Aid's going in the first round. Terry and Arnold's going in the first round. Ennis Rakestraw could go in the first round. I said it. Kool-Aid, Arnold, Rakestraw are all could be first round picks. Now, the guy that I'm intrigued about, and I watched some tape on him today, is Kalen Carson from Wake Forest. And I watched some videos on him today, and everything on YouTube is almost like him tackling. You don't see a lot of coverage. Wake Forest kind of talked about him, I was reading about him today, as being their top cover corner, as being their version of a shutdown corner. Yet, struggled at times in the ACC locating the football and closing. But yet, if you watch the tape, he can really tackle. He comes up from his cornerback spot and he grabs receivers on end around on reverses, quarterbacks scramble the pocket, running backs. He's a good tackler, but not good enough to cover to likely be drafted until Saturday, to likely go on day 3. But the Lions took a look at him. Go watch him on YouTube. Number 1 on Wake Forest, Kalen Carson. Look, the Lions may tease us all and not go corner until day 3. That's possible. Right? I mentioned before, at 29, you could see a receiver. You could see an edge. You could see another offensive lineman that they draft and stash. Kevin Zeitler, the starting right guard, is on a 1-year contract. If any of these guys go down, what are the Lions going to do along the offensive line? We know how good it's going to be, the starting group, but what about the depth? But 7 of the first 10 visits, all cornerbacks. The Lions are putting it out there that they're interested in corners. But if a game was being played right now, the Lions have Branch, Robertson, Davis, all ready to be out there and starting. So definitely interesting strategy from Brad Holmes, that's for sure. Dan Hoard, radio play-by-play voice of the Cincinnati Bengals, is going to join us coming up next to talk about DJ Reader. You want to talk about a guy that is easily the most popular pickup in free agency from the Lions. There's a reason why. And Dan Hoard is going to tell us about that coming up next. The voice of the Bengals joins us to talk about DJ Reader next, right here on Locked On Lions. Locked On Lions today brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks. Also, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. Tonight, folks, this is it. Huge game. Red Wings at the Penguins. Wings and Pens. A rivalry renewed. You want to put some money down on the game? You can do so at FanDuel.com. What are you waiting for? Go to the site, FanDuel.com/lockedon, and make sure your first bet is an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. As promised here on Locked On Lions today, I want to dive a little bit deeper into DJ Reader and just what an acquisition this was, certainly for Brad Holmes and the Lions, the man that called all of his games for the last 4 years in Cincinnati with the Bengals, the voice of the Bengals and the UC Bearcats. Our good buddy Dan Hoard is with us today. What's up, Dan?
Matt, if you see a slow tear trickle down my cheek, it will be because the Bengals are losing DJ Reader. I liked him that much personally. He's a great player, a great addition for the Lions. The only question will be, can he stay healthy?
Well, and obviously you see it on the screen on our YouTube channel, the rundown. That's part of what I wanted to ask you about. But man, he came in automatically, just helped change the culture. They go to the Super Bowl. He wore the C on his jersey. Talk about that and how much of an impact he made, not just on the field, but also in the room.
I want to go back to when he signed with Cincinnati, because he signed with the Bengals when they were at their lowest point in the last probably 20 years or so. It was right after Zach Taylor took the head coaching job. They started 0-11, and the following year, DJ Reader was willing to sign on. He saw the potential. He had a good relationship with Zach Taylor. He thought that he could help change the culture in Cincinnati. Now, it helps that Joe Burrow came along at roughly the same time, but he was a significant reason why they were able to turn the franchise around. And, you mentioned that captaincy on his chest, a tremendous leader inside the locker room. He'll be missed on the field, obviously. He's an excellent player, but I think he will really be missed on the defensive side in those meeting rooms when things get tough. When things seem to be spiraling out of control, he's great at bringing everybody back together.
What is it about him? Give us a little bit of peek into the personality that just makes him kind of a natural leader.
Honestly, I just think he's really a good person. You can't fake that. You either are or you aren't. And DJ Reader is one of those people who genuinely is a good dude. He connects with people of all shapes and sizes, creeds and colors, religions, etc. He's just one of those people. Even from a personal standpoint, one of my duties as the Bengals radio announcer is to host weekly radio shows where players join us on location. And as you can probably imagine, it's a lot easier to get a rookie to come out and join us at one of these shows than it is to get a Pro Bowl player, a star player, or an experienced veteran. Well, DJ Reader is one of those guys who would always come out and do the shows every year, which I greatly appreciate. And that gets back to the fact that he is just a genuinely good human being. And that shines through in everything that he does.
Voice of the Cincinnati Bengals, Dan Hoard, joining us. Hear him on the radio with Dave Lapham. They do a fantastic job on the field in terms of where the Lions want to put him. They're going to be placing him next to Aleem McNeil, which would be an unbelievable kind of 1-2 punch in the middle of that defensive line. Everybody just looks at DJ, right, Dan, and says, nose tackle, plugger, run stopper, but you can get to the quarterback too, can he?
He doesn't get a lot of sacks, but he does get decent pressure. I think if you look at the metrics that websites like Pro Football Focus cranks out, they always grade his pressure percentage pretty highly, particularly for a man his size, a 335-pound guy. Those guys typically are pretty close to the line of scrimmage, but DJ's quick and strong. He gets decent penetration, so I wouldn't expect anything like 5 or 6 sacks, but he is going to help you get that interior push, which in this day and age is critical. Quarterbacks get the ball out of their hands so quickly that if you can't get straight line pressure to get him off his spot, to make him uncomfortable, opposing quarterbacks are going to eat you alive. And DJ Reader is good at least collapsing the pocket and putting pressure on the quarterback and helping the edge rushers get home for the sacks.
The injuries and the tears in his legs twice, is that what kind of scared the Bengals away? I mean, what was how did you feel about his chances of coming back to Cincy as free agency started?
Well, the Bengals tried to re-sign him. The Lions offered him a little more, whether it was the guarantee or the total amount, I'm not sure which, but the Bengals certainly didn't want to lose him. And I think they felt reasonably sure that he would be able to come back from this. But facts are facts. He spent 4 years in Cincinnati. He played a full season, 1 out of the 4. So he tore the quad tendon in each leg, left side his first year, right side last year. He had a significant knee injury in his 3rd season and missed a chunk of that year. So that's what you're worried about, whether you're the Bengals or the Lions. It's the biggest reason, obviously, his contract was structured the way that it was by Detroit. So you're betting on the person, you're betting on the track record that he came back from this injury once before on the other leg. But when you're a soon-to-be 30-year-old man who weighs 335 pounds and has played a lot of NFL football, there is some risk involved.
Was there a time where he was dominant, where you remember, all right, if the Lions can get this DJ Reader, what was this DJ Reader in your mind?
Yeah, I would say over the last 3 years, he's been pretty dominant when healthy. The Super Bowl year stands out for the Bengals, 2021, because that was the year that he stayed healthiest. I think he only missed 1 game that year, and he was great in the postseason. But if you look, just getting back to Pro Football Focus, they've had him in the top 10 or close to the top 10 among interior defensive linemen in his overall rating every year. He's always high as a run stopper. He's generally pretty high as somebody who can put pressure on the quarterback. So when healthy, he's a great player. But the Super Bowl year does stand out because that was the year that he was healthiest the longest for Cincinnati.
Dan Horde with us, talking a little bit of DJ Reader. You mentioned before about the captaincy. How many years did he wear the C? I'm trying to remember.
That's a good question. I'm not positive off the top of my head. I would say at least half of his 4 years in Cincinnati would be my guess, possibly 3 out of the 4.
What are they going to miss most about him? And you know, when you look at Detroit and see that defense, and like I said, putting him next to Aleem McNeil, what are your thoughts?
Cincinnati's going to miss him most as a run stopper. You know, we talked about the fact that he can pressure the quarterback, and that's important, but his strength is somebody who's hard to move at the line of scrimmage. And Cincinnati did not have a great run defense last year, and it really tailed off when DJ Reader was not on the field. So that's what the Bengals are going to miss the most. It might not be what the Lions need the most. You know, the Bengals kind of took a calculated gamble this offseason. They spent big money on Sheldon Rankins as a free agent defensive tackle, and right. Sheldon Rankins profiles more as a pass rusher than a run stopper. So they went in that direction in giving Sheldon the big bucks instead of DJ Reader. We'll see how it pans out.
By the way, Joe Burrow, who obviously you've covered and seen and called every one of his games. He's the highest paid quarterback in the league and has a 5 in front of his number. We were talking to Adam Schefter this week about, will Jared Goff get the 5, get that 50, or will the Lions offer 48, 47? How do you look at it in terms of quarterbacks, and would you give Jared Goff $50 million a year?
You have to. These quarterback salaries never go down. It's really just a matter of when your franchise quarterback comes up for his deal. So Jared Goff might not get quite as much as Joe Burrow. I don't think he deserves quite as much as Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is probably one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL, but Jared Goff is not going to come at a big discount after Joe Burrow got his deal and the other quarterbacks signed their deals this past offseason. So I would say it's probably pretty likely that number is going to begin with a 5. It might not be 55 like Joe, but it's probably going to begin with a 5.
You're obviously in the AFC North. You know, look, we can make the argument almost every year it might be the best division in football. Lions in the NFC North. How do you view Detroit and what they've done now, Dan? They kind of took a page out of the Bengals book and how they've rebuilt this thing. And also, where do you put the Lions in the pantheon of the NFC?
Well, I think we all saw last year that they are one of the best teams in the NFC, and I don't see them getting any worse. They've drafted so incredibly well over the last few years, and I do think that Jared Goff has proven to be, if not one of the top 5 quarterbacks, certainly one of the top 10 or 12, and that's good enough to potentially win you a Super Bowl. I think we're all fans of Dan Campbell. He's done such a tremendous job of energizing that franchise and the entire fan base. And I know the Cincinnati coaching staff has high regard for Dan Campbell because many of those guys worked with him in Miami. Zach Taylor was his offensive coordinator in the limited stretch where Dan Campbell was the interim head coach. Lou Anarumo, our defensive coordinator, was part of the defensive coaching staff there in Miami. So you got a lot of Dan Campbell fans here in Cincinnati on the Bengals coaching staff, and you've got one in the broadcast booth as well.
Final thing, you just mentioned Lou. It's stunning to me Ben Johnson is not a head coach. Stunning to me that Lou did not get a head coaching job again. That's he's a damn good coordinator.
Yeah, the Bengals feel very fortunate he's still here. The Bengals did not have a good year on defense last year. Part of it was due to injuries. Part of it was due to the fact that they lost both of their safeties, and the 2 young guys that stepped in didn't quite perform to the same level. Now they're getting Von Bell back, which is good. So the fact that their defense wasn't good probably took the bloom off the rose a little bit for NFL teams, considering Lou Anarumo as a head coach. And let's face it, most teams hire offensive guys instead of defensive guys. It's probably 3-1 when teams choose new head coaches. But having said all that, I think the Bengals are thrilled he's still here because he's an awesome defensive coordinator. I think he will be a good head coach if he's ever given that opportunity. And if the Bengals have a bounce back year and their defense performs better, he'll probably be back in the mix for the head coaching jobs next year.
Cincinnati legend and Syracuse legend, the great Dan Hoard, with us today. Dan, thanks so much.
Matt, my pleasure. Thanks for the kind words. I appreciate it.
There he is, Dan Hoard with us, the voice, the play-by-play voice of the Cincinnati Bengals, and he is absolutely fantastic on the air and knows his stuff. So great to get some insight into DJ Reader. Love what he said about DJ coming to the radio shows and being so unselfish. We absolutely love that. More next, including Lions kicking news. And Locked On Lions are brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Folks, passion, drive, and performance and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and leave it up to peak, level up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, you got to check out eBay Motors because they have you covered. They're the best. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And hey, we also, Locked On Lions is sponsored by BetterHelp. Thinking about therapy, thinking about talking to somebody and getting kind of involved and having some conversations that's going to make you feel better. There's nothing better than talking to somebody, and there's no better place to go than BetterHelp. If you had an extra hour in your day, what would you do? What would you think about? A lot of us spend our times wishing we had more time, right? The question is, time on what? Time for what? Time was unlimited. How would you use it? Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it. And if you're thinking about therapy, you got to give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp. It's HELP.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, so I read something very, very interesting, and I didn't talk about this on Monday, and I waited till Thursday, and shame on me for doing that. But ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the legend is back in the news. Yes, the Michigan Panthers of the UFL Played a couple of games at Ford Field. Yes, none of you have gone to the games. I get it. But their kicker, Jake Bates, in week 1 kicked a 64-yard game-winning field goal. And reports came out that the Lions are one of the teams interested in him. This past Sunday, they lose to Birmingham 20-13, but Jake Bates at it again. A 52-yard field goal at Ford Field, and then a 62-yard field goal for the man that has not kicked a field goal since high school. Mike Nolan in the Free Press, the head coach of the Michigan Panthers, says some teams have even reached out to Jake personally, which is not allowed during the UFL season. Now, so there's been a report that the Lions are interested. There were no reports. I'm not reporting that the Lions ever contacted this kid, but the rules state that these UFL players need to go through the season and then they can be contacted by teams. Teams can say they're interested. Teams can call the Lions could call Mike Nolan or the general manager of the Michigan Panthers and have a conversation about the player. They can't contact the player directly. But according to Mike Nolan, that's happened. I don't think there's any question that the Lions need to at least take a look at this guy. Back-to-back weeks, he's kicked 60-yard field goals. The Lions kicker, Michael Badgley, Dan Cameron won him kicking 47-yarders. And I know it was the NFC Championship game, and I know it was outdoors, but the phenomenon that is Jake Bates continues down at Ford Field, just not for the Lions, but for the UFL's Michigan Panthers. All right, that'll do it for us here on this Thursday edition of Locked On Lions. We are back again tomorrow. Folks, we are just 2 weeks away. Crazy. 2 weeks from round 1 of the NFL draft. Go online. There's all sorts of articles and stuff about where you should be driving, not driving, roads that are closed downtown. GMAC Cash has a new video about that Detroit sign that's now up on I-94. Oh, my goodness. We're back again tomorrow right here on Locked On Lions. Thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcasts.